Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Growing Your Dental Business podcast. This is a podcast where we explore innovative strategies for building a thriving dental practice. I'm your host, Jacqueline Hurley. I'm also the director of the eAssist Consultant Network, as well as the director of Dental Zing, which is our online educational platform. Today, we're going to discuss dental insurance contracts and what are they really costing you. So this is a great subject to have, a great topic to have. I'm really excited to welcome one of our friends and partners, Dr. Gerilyn Alfe from beautiful Naples, Florida. And was a practicing dentist for 25 years. And during that time, she owned a 100% fee for service and 100% insurance independent practice. Once she retired from clinical dentistry, she then went back to school and she earned her MBA, which is so impressive. I just am so impressed with you, Dr. Alf. She now shares her knowledge, experience, and passion by coaching and empowering dentists and their teams to live their best lives. So, welcome, Dr. Alf.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. And so one of the things I asked Dr. Alf when we decided to do this podcast was, what challenges do you help dentists and their teams solve? And she gave me a very, very long list. And I would imagine that you cannot be a practicing dentist for 25 years and not have learned a few things, right? And a big long list of things that you could share with other dentists to kind of help them be more productive, manage their teams, do all of this stuff. With your MBA, I'm sure you're so much more business minded than you ever were as a dentist, even. So let's talk a little bit about how you decided to become a dentist and then what made you decide to become a coach where you could help other dentists. I'd love to hear that.
Sure, great. Thanks, Jacqueline. So I decided to become a dentist in second grade. I was blessed that I didn't have a cavity until I was 17. So for me to go to the dentist, it was fun. They tickled my teeth for a couple of minutes. The worst was, this is how old I am. They stuck those fluoride trays in and you were drooling all over the place for 5 minutes. But other than that, I got a toy at the end. And I thought, this is a great place to be. So as I got older, I was always drawn toward the medical field. And for a while, I thought about going into medical school rather than dental school. But I realized that there's no part of medicine aside from forensics where you might not have to tell somebody that they're going to die. And I didn't think I wanted to deal with that. So I gravitated back toward dentistry. Luckily, I did very well in math and science, and I was artistic as well. And so it just naturally spoke to me. And the thing that I love about dentistry is, especially as a female, you can make it as much or as little of your life as you want. And I say that not to be sexist, but the reality is that if you're a married person with children, a lot of women are still bearing the major lion's share of raising the kids. And so you have the ability to work part-time as an associate in someone's practice for a couple of days, or you can go all out and own your own business and hire other people to work in your practice. Like, there's so much flexibility with it. And for me, I never had kids, so I just threw myself in and did my dentistry as best I could. I wrote and lectured and taught hands-on courses, and I really just went full bore. And after 25 years of practicing, in the last 10 years, I had 3 back surgeries. So the reason that I retired is because I couldn't physically do it anymore. My surgeon said to me, Gerilyn, if you never want to see me again professionally, you really got to think of something else. And I said, I'm too young to retire. And that was about 7 years before I did finally retire. So I switched from sitting to standing, and that helped a lot. I do yoga every day, and that helped a lot. And so, but at 25 years, I knew that I was just pushing the envelope, and I thought I need to start thinking about something else. Well, I've always been a lifelong learner, and I knew there was always more for me to learn. So I went to school online and got my MBA. And unfortunately, the year that I started my MBA, my mom passed suddenly that summer. And yeah, thank you. And I realized that trying to run a solo dental practice when I'm an only child and my dad still lives in the Boston area was going to be very onerous because he needed a lot of help. And when you're the practitioner, you have to be in the practice if you're the only one there.
Right.
So as much as it's the worst thing that ever happened to me. My mom going, but the universe provides for you when we don't understand all the time. And it happened 2 months before the sale of my practice. So then I had the calendar freedom to be able to go back and forth to Boston to help my dad out, to do my studies. I was engaged at that point, so I was planning my wedding. And so everything fell into place, never the way that I would have pictured it, but I trusted the process. And what I love about what I do now, because when I retired, all my patients said to me, so Dr. Alfe, are you going to go start teaching? And I said, do you know how much teachers make at dental schools? No. I said, but I can't lecture on clinical once you're not practicing anymore. You lose your validity. And I thought, I have a whole host of information and knowledge. And I had my own coach from 5 years out of dental school. So after I'd been practicing for 5 years, I hired my own coach. And I worked with a coach for the remainder of my practice. And that was the best decision I ever made, because I can never know everything. It is very personal when it's your practice. Someone looking from the outside has a more detached view, a more objective view. And it's another brain, right? In my MBA program, it was run by Jack Welch, and he says, get as many brains in the game as you can. So I'm just another brain in the game for my clients and their teams. And, you know, between all the courses I took over the years, the coaches that I've worked with, my mentors, my MBA program, I kind of pick and choose what I think is going to work best for each individual client, because every practice is different. And so there's no cookie cutter for me. And I think that's one of the things that distinguishes me from some other programs that are out there, where it's just at month 3, you go through this, at month 6, you go through this. That's not right for most practices. You have to listen to your client, listen to their team, know what they're going through, and then adapt and help them. And I love being able to see my clients and their teams and their practices grow. I mean, year over year, this year for my existing clients, they have across the board had a minimum of 20% growth to their bottom line year over year.
Wow.
So that's not chump change. So, you know, it works. And I don't do anything, you know, the systems I talk about, everyone talks about the same systems. The most important thing is finding someone that you're comfortable with, so that you feel safe enough to share what's bothering you the most. Because it's kind of like going to see a therapist. If you don't tell me what's really happening, I can't help you that well. There's never any judgment. I know exactly what you're going through. I can guarantee every mistake you ever made, I made it probably times 10, even with working with a coach. So, you know, I get it.
Well, I love your humility through all of that. It sounds like you are so willing to share, you know, the mistakes that you made as a dentist, and you can kind of see what's happening in a dental practice when you come in. And I just love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sorry that you probably had some bumps along the way, as we all do in life in general, right? So you kind of just figure it out as you go along. And I'm glad it worked out for you. And I'm sure you at this point are such a powerful coach, and dentists are lucky to have you, as their coach, because you've got so much to bring to the table. So one of the things I know that you focus on, and one of the things that you said you have become a very highly sought after speaker on, is how dentists determine if they should be in or out of network. And I know this is probably a hot topic. It's a big question. It's been a hot topic for several years, and I don't see it going away very soon, because insurance is a big part of the dental game right now. So I would love to hear your story on how, or at least what it is that you recommend when a dentist is trying to determine if they should be in or out of network.
Absolutely, Jacqueline. So first of all, I don't think every office should be fee for service. Okay. It is a very special animal, and it takes an amazing vision of the doctor. The team has to be 100% bought in and believe in that. They have to be willing to bend over backwards for their patients, and they have to be super skilled at everything that they do. Basically, everything has to go almost perfectly with every single patient interaction if you want to have a thriving fee-for-service practice, and even more so today, because the reality is that there is very little loyalty anymore. And in the past, for a patient to leave a practice and find just another guy down the street, it was a little more onerous, right? They had to pull up the yellow pages. Now, I have one bad interaction with somebody, I whip this out, I scroll, and I'm gone. Yeah. And, people don't necessarily exit gracefully. They just ghost you. And that is happening more and more because they're changing social mores. So that's just the reality of it. For me, when I decided to go independent from insurance and fee for service, it was, I was sharing with Jacqueline beforehand, this is one of my major mistakes. I was partner in a practice at the time. We both were completely fed up with dealing with adjusters telling us that we were over treating when we weren't. And we decided to drop everything cold turkey. If you take nothing else away from this, never, ever, 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 ever do that.
Don't do
Unless you
that.
want to implode your practice and have a lot of sleepless nights. Now, we did not implode our practice, but I had a lot of sleepless nights. We lost 20% of the patient base because we handled it so wrong. Luckily, because we had all those other things in place, what happened was patients left, they went somewhere else and didn't have the same experience. So they realized, and then we actually started to learn better about how to talk to our patients about this, that just because I'm out of network doesn't mean you can't come see me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm fee for service doesn't mean that we won't file for you, that we won't fight for you. You may decide if you don't want to be fee for service, but out of network, you're still going to accept assignment of benefits, which means that your patient doesn't have to whip out her credit card every time she sees you. So you have to become very well versed in all the nuances and know how to explain it to your patient as a benefit to them. We didn't do that. I do it now. And I train all of my teams on how to do that very seamlessly. And when I'm speaking to groups, I make it very clear that this is not a decision to be taken lightly, and you can't do it all at once. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And the reality is that you need to know your numbers. You need to know what your gross and your net production are, what your gross and your net collections are. You need to know what your adjustment rate is for each of those groups. Across the board, it's usually 35 to 40% of your gross production is chopped off the top. If you are in network with some of those companies, some are worse than others, and everyone knows which is the worst one. And so you have to have very clean numbers. You need to know how many active patients you have. If you have fewer than 1,000 to 1,100, it's not the time to drop any. If you don't have more than 25 to 50 new patients coming through per doctor per month, it's not the time to drop. You have to know your community. There are so many factors that go into it, but you have to have 100% pristine data before you make that emotional decision to kick them to the curb. And you have to get your team bought in. They have to be behind it, because one dissenting voice will sink the entire ship. And for me, after I left my first practice, when I built my practice in Chicago, it was a cosmetic practice. I built it as 100% fee for service, insurance independent. So I had to get to know marketing really well, because I wasn't getting them through the insurance companies, which you all need to understand that when you sign up to be part of an insurance plan, that's part of your marketing budget. Why else do you sign up? So it brings you new patients. Okay. When you see that you're writing off 35%, that's a big chunk of your marketing budget. Your marketing budget should be 3 to 5% of your overhead. So, you know, I train people on, they need to know what their overhead numbers are. They need to know what percentages are going toward team costs, toward marketing, toward facility, toward dental supplies, toward lab. They need to know what is the annual patient value of each individual patient in the group. There's so many factors that go into it. So once you've looked at all your numbers and you know that they are valid numbers, then you need to set your drop date. So this is part of my 7 steps to financial freedom. And it is at a minimum of 6 months from the date that you decide that you're going to let those companies know, because you want that time to have face-to-face conversations with every patient that's in that plan. Why do I say 6 months? What happens in a dental practice every 6 months? Your patient comes in for hygiene at a minimum, right? Yeah. And so don't send out a blanket letter, and don't wait for the companies to get in touch with your patients, because they're going to frighten the heck out of them, and your patients will flee like rats on a ship. So we want to manage this. We want to be in control of the dialogue here. So once you've decided that, that's when you need to start looking at, how do I get my team to buy into this? Because if you have one dissenting voice, they will sink the whole ship. And so that is when it's very helpful to have someone like me or any other sort of facilitator that's trained in this to come in for a full day and workshop all of this. What are the limiting beliefs that the team has about dropping insurance, transforming them into empowering beliefs, making sure that everybody knows how to answer the most frequently asked questions. I provide scripting that they can use as a jumping off point. And we make sure that once they start to see the numbers, and especially if the team has a bonus system set in place, and they realize how much money they are paying those dental benefit companies instead of themselves, it's amazing how quickly they're like, oh yeah, this is nuts. And when they believe in the doctor and they believe in the skill of the doctor and the rest of the team, they know the value. And that's what we always have to focus on with the patients, the value of what they are getting when they come to your practice versus a practice that may take every insurance under the sun. And I'm not bashing them, but some of them do end up being mills and you lose that personal touch. And I think especially after COVID, people are just thirsting for personal touch. And so when you can provide that, especially in an environment that most people don't want to be in the first place, that is the secret sauce. Then your patients will follow you unless you move out of state. So
Right, right. No, I think that's great. Well, so one of the things you talked about was getting the team bought in. And it sounds like to do that, you would really need to work with a coach like yourself to kind of go through all that process. If you have, I mean, I guess if you have a team member that is really anti, but it seems like, at that point, you've got a good relationship with your dentist, and he probably or she makes sure it's a team effort to really make that decision. And it's a step-by-step process. So like you say, you don't jump in cold turkey, which is probably a good thing since you've already experienced that. And just go through that process. I think that's great. It's interesting. I'm thinking back, I actually was one of those patients. So I went to work out of the home, mostly for health insurance, health benefits, and dental benefits came along with that, which we had always paid out of pocket for our dental benefits before that. And so it was kind of like, or for our oral care. And I have had a really great dentist, and she was the first one that basically I know she knew your scripting because she said to me, of course we take your insurance. She didn't say, no, we're not a provider or anything like that. She said, of course, we take your insurance. We will submit any claims that we will submit it to the insurance company. You may have to pay a little bit more out of pocket. She did explain that to me. And at first I was like, okay, I'll do it. I went in, got my cleaning, did the things, and I stayed there probably for a year. But then I was looking at all these other dentists around me that I'm like, oh, there's probably one of these dentists that are in network with my preferred provider. I work so I can have these benefits and I'm paying more out of pocket, even though it still was probably saving me a lot more money than it was prior to that, right? But in my mind, my mindset was, I'm sure I can find another good dentist. Well, I know there's a lot of not so great dentists probably around me too, but so you have to kind of do your homework. But I was actually really impressed with how they handled it. I did tell her, I didn't ghost her. I did I did tell her that I had just that since she wasn't a preferred provider for my network, that I probably would try and find a different dentist just that would cover all the costs of what I'm typically just a cleanings girl, and maybe I don't very rare I even have cavities. So it's kind of like, okay, so why am I, it's like, yeah, this is all covered if I go to a different dentist, that kind of thing. And so I did make the switch, although I will tell you, she's a very classy dentist. And she had actually done a crown on me that for some reason was giving me a little bit of trouble once I had switched over, and insurance wouldn't pay because I had already had it done. And she was like, Jacqueline, I'm so sorry. And she actually credited me money towards my crown, knowing I was having to have it redone. I just have utmost respect for dentists like that who are so helpful and just really want to make a difference in the lives of patients. So I just thought I would share with you that side of the story because I know exactly what you're talking about when you say, you probably had 20% of your patient base walk because of the way you handled it. But if you handle it properly, then it might be one off here and there, but it's not going to be like a big percentage. I know one thing we talked a little bit about too was bringing in a third party dental billing company like eAssist. And you're one of eAssist's number one referral sources. So obviously you work with practices that haven't jumped to all fee for service,
Right.
and you refer them over. And why, if you promote fee for service, would you recommend a third party dental billing company to a dentist?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jacqueline. So when I was practicing in my last practice, it was a very small practice by design. Like I actually wanted to keep the patient volume at a certain level. I didn't want to blow the practice out. For one thing, I didn't have the space. The second thing, I didn't want another dentist coming into work with me. And so for me, it was like I managed it the way that I needed to. That is not the case for 99.99% of the dentists out there. They are looking to grow. And the reality is that all of those companies, the amount of bandwidth and exhaustion that those team members go through trying to fight a claim, follow up on a claim, deal with, that you didn't get reimbursed exactly what they told you they were going to reimburse you, blah, 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 blah. Let me ask you, when one of your team members gets off a call with one of those companies, do you want them talking to your patient right now? I mean, let's face it, they are not in a good emotional mindset at that moment. I don't blame them. If you want to really ruin my day, make me talk to an insurance company, a bank, and QuickBooks. And my day will be ruined. Throw AT&T on top of that and I'll go postal, okay? So think about what you're asking your team to do. You're asking them to go from a frustrating thing that they are not the expert in how to handle, and then put on their happy face and be the most amazing customer service forward facing person to take care of your patients. It's unachievable. Okay. You're setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
And as companies like eAssist have progressed throughout the years, I have switched completely from, I would love to do everything in my own practice, to outsource everything you can that does not enhance your patient experience, that one-on-one personal experience. And when I have my clients working with eAssist, it is incredible that one, their collections go up. Two, the amount of time it takes them to get paid shortens. And three, their team morale is 1,000,000,000 times better. Because you know what? All of those people that had those frustrating incidents throughout the day dealing with those companies, they no longer have to deal with that. And so they are doing what they are best at, which is taking great care of the patient in front of them. You guys do what you are best at, which is writing those things like Zorro until you get every last red cent out of them, so that whether it's the patient or the office that gets reimbursed. Now, we had talked about, if you're fee for service, why would you use a service like eAssist? Well, when I was fee for service, we still submitted claims for our patients. Yes, they got the check. I did not. But I still want to be an advocate for my patient. I still want my patient to get every single red cent that she is due. And so if my team member has to get on the phone and now argue with that company, we are even less prepared to do that because we didn't do it on a regular basis. So for any office, unless you hand the insurance form to your patient and say, you file it, you deal with it. For one thing, I don't know how many patients are going to stick around for that, because that's not good service.
Right.
But every other practice can utilize your service because it takes something off the shoulders of the team members. And it is actually much less expensive to pay an outside service to do those things that you do best, rather than hiring an additional team member. Think about it this way. You don't have payroll taxes for that additional person. You don't have to pay vacation time, PTO, holidays. You don't have to worry about someone calling in sick. You don't have to have an onboarding time where you're pulling your best people away to help get somebody trained. You guys are already the experts in it. So it's basically turnkey, and wow, my team is happier. My patients are getting everything that they deserve, and we're making more money. What's wrong with that? Nothing.
Yeah, no kidding. That's great. Thank you for clarifying that, because I've often thought through all of that process and wondered, how does that work if you do a full fee for service? So let's say you come up on a practice who is contemplating maybe jumping or stepping step by step into the fee for service realm. What is the overall plan for that dentist? Or I guess even if you're working with them or not working with them, what the steps, the first step they would take?
Yeah, so it's the first step of the 7 steps to financial freedom. The first step is know your numbers. So those numbers that I had already gone through.
We did.
The second, set your drop date. The third, get your team bought in and get them highly trained. And you got to do a lot of role playing, because everybody has to practice this. And get this, no one ever likes role playing. Even people that are hams don't like to role play. They feel goofy. And I used to do it with my team all the time. We were constantly role playing at our meetings. And I would say, I'd rather you feel goofy and uncomfortable with me than with the patient. I don't want you to seem unsure of what it is that you're going to say, because they may interpret that as this person isn't really committed to this decision, not
Yeah.
that you're just not comfortable with the discussion. So everyone on the team has to know how to answer, the 10 most frequently asked questions. After that, you need to look at turbocharging your marketing if you don't have a really healthy online presence, and you need to have a fantastic marketing team doing that. Don't have your person who's doing it part-time, every other day she's trying to answer a post on Instagram. Doesn't work. Okay. Long-term, not sustainable if you want to grow. You have to offer an in-office membership plan so that you have another avenue for your patients to then take advantage of. And as I said, with the next step, which is master customized personalized customer service. And part of that is outsource everything you possibly can so that your team is really well trained in how to take the best possible care of your patients. And then you need to get really well trained and figure out what you want to do that are discretionary services, that are high value services that those companies don't pay at all or very little on anyway, that patients are asking for. So whether it's clear aligners or veneers or bleaching or Botox or fillers or, any other dental thing at this point, if you have anything more than a couple of hygiene visits and a filling per year, you're paying out of pocket. So if you want to do more implants, your patients are paying mostly out of pocket for that anyway. Yeah. So make sure you're the best one in your area that's doing it. Get highly trained, get your team highly trained in it, and make sure that everyone knows how to talk to your patients about those services.
I love it. I love it. That is just a good rundown of everything we've talked about today, and some, I think. I feel like there's a lot more. So, Dr. Alfe, if a practice or a practitioner, a dentist wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Are you offering anything special as part of this podcast? Why don't you tell us how the best way to get a hold of you is?
Sure. So they can go to my website, getaheadcc.com, for more information. They can email me at Gerilyn at getaheadcc.com.
Okay.
They can text me at 312-479-4427. And I don't really have any sort of specials that I'm running at this point, but I do, I have different tiers of programs. So the base one, the easiest one, is what I call the analysis and game plan, where I have 2 to 3 1-hour Zoom calls with the owner. They send me necessary reports. I can do a deep dive on their practice, not only their financials, but the other parts of what I call the 4 pillars of a good practice, which is marketing, the people, the systems, and the finances. So I go into great depth so that the doctor, maybe for the first time, really has a comprehensive view of where they are. It's a nice intro for some people because they may not have worked with a coach or consultant before, and they have a good snapshot of what their practice is right now. It's also a nice thing for someone who's thinking about selling in 3 to 5 years, so they know where they are. And if they don't like what they see, they've got time to make changes in their practice. And it's good if you're thinking about bringing in a partner or expanding or merging. Or if you just decide, I'm just done, I'm tired of being burnt out, I'm tired of my team feeling burnt out, I want to have a better life and a better balance of life. It's not all about the money. I know that many times when people think about coaches and consultants, it's the team freaks out. She's going to come in and tell us that we got a slash cost here and someone's going to get fired. And I'm like, well, if you deserve to get fired, you're going to get fired. It might happen sooner. Yeah, because I may be nudging your doctor more, but that is not how we make a practice more profitable. We make a practice more profitable by making them efficient, by improving their production, which improves their collections, by improving their collection, make sure that they're actually collecting their money.
Yeah.
And getting everybody on the same page, right? Have everyone rowing in the same direction. And so for doctors that want to kind of dip their toe in a little bit more, then I have my in-training program, and that's just one-on-one with the doctor. I don't do team training unless they want to add that on. And then my top level program is my Olympic level coaching, and that includes 2 doctor calls per month. I do 5 in-office training full days. I do 6 1-hour Zoom breakouts with team and a whole host of other things. I've got every doctor that works with me gets access to Coach Accountable, which is a secure portal. They have their own secure page, so they have access to all my files. I've got literally thousands of documents and PowerPoints and every sort of supporting material they could need. And I'm always available for them. I answer emails and text messages constantly throughout the day. I'm not like an attorney where it's, okay, that was 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's good. You're a coach. You want to help them. Your ultimate goal is to help them from the experiences that you've had. And thank you, Dr. Alfe. I really appreciate you coming today and explaining, all the differences of being in or out of, those PPO networks and how it works with a team, how it works with your patients. You've got a lot of good information. That's it for today's episode of Growing Your Dental Business podcast. Thank you for tuning in. And we want to thank eAssist Dental Solutions. They are sponsors of our podcast. Please visit dentalbilling.com to learn more about how eAssist can help you with your revenue cycle management. Please like and share this podcast with your friends and keep smiling because we're going to see you next time. Thanks, Dr. Alfe.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.